Here I am in another Porsche. I'm going to do a quick drive with the default settings. And these are the modifications. It's completely normal. I already have parts for the car that I'm going to change in the later half of the video, but no modifications apart from the sports soft tires. I think it comes with the sports medium tires. Anyway, the spring stiffnesses are generally where I'd like them already, but the anti-roll bars are not. They're very soft. I've already driven the car before at the Nürburgring, Nordschleife, and it's very wobbly. And it's kind of a shame because the Porsches are really good cars, and part of what makes the car really good is the natural tuning from the factory, what it comes stock with, right? And these, I'm assuming, are not the stock settings, just like other cars I've driven, which the only car that I know of, or actually two of the cars I know of, the Hyundai Genesis Coupe 3.8 and the what would be the Scion FRS, but the GT86 do not have their actual stock spring rates and anti-roll bar settings. That being said, I'm going to try to make the car drive better, but like I said, the spring rates are very closely into the range I'd like them to be in. The rear natural frequency is a bit stiff. Makes it more throttle sensitive. With these tires, it's not that big of a deal. The car, because of the tire physics, it's always going to be snappy. The only issue is the anti-roll bars, really, in that the car swings a lot, and so when it does slide, and when it gets snappy when it does slide, it's hard to catch. Differential settings they're fine. I could tune that. I'm probably not going to tune that because they're probably fine. And onto the drive. The H pattern? No, paddle shift. So I haven't done any practice today. I just got home. So I don't really know how much throttle input I can put in the car or steering angle. What's really nice though is the car does not understeer too much. Whoops, shouldn't have upshifted. The car rotates really nicely. As you can see, I'm barely turning the wheel. I'm not even scrubbing the front end through the turns to the middle of the corners. So I'm barely turning the wheel here, and it's four-wheel sliding through the corners. When I'm barely turning the wheel, that means it's not oversteering, or not understeering, sorry. And I actually had to countersteer there. And I'm driving very smoothly, or I should say, I'm underdriving the car. I'm not pushing it. Like I said, I don't have any practice. The natural weight balance makes it real easy to get on throttle early in the corner. I'm gonna brake here, stay in fifth, I think. Oh, nope, it's on fourth. That was a scary slide. Brake here, it's oversteering on the brakes, so I need to change the brake bias. And the front springs are actually softer than I have on the 1995 Porsche, so I might have to change the front spring. The modified 1995 Porsche, that is. Whoa. Under driving here. So I'm pretty sure this car, stock from factory, has progressive rate springs and either active dampers or dual rate dampers, where they have two speeds. They have the fast bump setting and the slow bump setting. That's because in order to get the car to perform well, it does need stiff springs. But it's a street car, and they don't want the car to be driving around like it's on stiff springs all the time. So what they do with these really nice cars that drive on regular roads and take into track days sometimes is they have progressive rate springs or dual rate springs, either one. Whoa, overslowed the car here. And then they compensate the soft springs or the soft initial travel of the suspension with either adaptive dampers, so they get stiffer. Oh, didn't brake in the right time. Adaptive dampers, much like the Toyota Supra. Or they have dual rate dampers, where it has a fast bump and slow bump. I don't know which technology they have in the Porsche, this version of the Porsche, 2017 I think. But I notice I have to be very delicate with the weight transfer because the anti-roll is so soft. Oh, I don't think I have to lift there. Stay in fifth up the hill. Oh, I'm gonna lift here because I'm wobbling at speed. And it might not have been noticeable, but if the car starts wobbling at speed, it's a very good sign to have to slow down. Barely turning the wheel through that kink. It's again because of the weight balance and natural suspension settings that have been tuned into the game with the stiff rear springs. By the way, 2.1 and a 2.4 natural frequency for this car, which weighs probably 32,000 pounds, 3,200 pounds, sorry, not 1,000, 3,200 pounds. That's going to be like a 12 kilogram spring, maybe 11 or something like that. I don't know. It's an estimate, but it's in the double digits. And that's really stiff, especially if it has multi-link or rear suspension. So the McPherson strut, which I think it doesn't have McPherson strut in the front. I don't know. It may have double wishbone. But it depends on the natural frequencies of the springs, and swing arm system is dependent on the motion ratio, which I recently learned about. Really underdriving the car because I'm talking too much. So the motion ratio of the spring versus the wheel is, if you have a McPherson strut, which I'm not going to go into detail what that is, the spring is basically at the very end of the swing arm motion. So that's very close to 100% motion ratio. So that'll be a 1-to-1 ratio of the spring and wheel. But if you have a multi-link suspension, which most cars have multi-link rear suspension, most modern cars, modern sports cars anyway, the spring is going to likely be mounted in the middle of the rear swing arm, and that's going to be close to 50% motion ratio, or 0.5 motion ratio, right? And that's going to change the natural frequency versus the spring rate. And so what that's going to do is that it's going to increase. So with the multi-link rear suspension at 50% motion ratio, it's going to increase the spring rate for any given natural frequency. And so the rear spring rate on this thing is probably going to be in the 12s, or 18s even, not even 12s, but like close to 20 kilograms, that is. When I mention spring rates, I mention them in the regular measurement that they sell them at, they're just in kilogram force per millimeter. So it's kilogram times gravity over millimeter. Anyway, that being said, like a 12 would be 120 newtons per millimeter approximately, because 1 G of gravity is 9.8, not 10. So an 18 is 180 newtons per millimeter. Those are really stiff springs. That's just because it has a motion ratio of 1/2 or 0.5. And here's the end of the lap at a very leisurely drive. I'm talking a lot through the fast section, so I didn't really shave much time. Whoa, 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 whoa. There's that throttle sensitivity. Low gears, the high torque in second gear. Now let's do some very quick suspension tuning. And I had to take it really easy because the car is wobbly. So anyway, back to spring rates and natural frequencies. For this car to run at have good performance at high speeds and while cornering with very grippy tires, the suspension has to be very stiff. But because it's a street car, it also has to perform well over bumps. So it probably would have progressive rate springs or dual rate springs, which this game does not simulate. Oh, I don't have the suspension. Excuse me, while I fast forward through this and get the suspension. Okay, here I am back with the right stuff. Got the brake balance controller and the customizable suspension. So this was at 210. I'm actually going to leave it at 230 because that's closer to what I have on the 1995 Porsche. Ride heights, might be significant. I'm going to leave it where it's at though. However, I'm going to change. I'm just doing my usual settings. Doing this quickly. 230 is minimum. Okay, whatever. I'll leave it at 230 then. And this is going to be 0.9. These are very wide rear tires. 310 probably millimeter wide tires. Probably. That's an assumption. And the narrow front tires either 255 or 245. So I'm going to go to 3. Or 2.8 actually. And a little bit of toe out. Less toe in the rear. And brake balance, I'll leave it where it's at for now. Maybe. Yes, I'm just going to do this quickly. Oh, actually, max out the dampers. And I've decided as of late to make the rear compression ratio 75% less stiff than, not 75%, 25%, is it 75? 25% less stiff than the front. So this is at 75% of the front is what I'm trying to say. So 40 divided by 4 is 10, right? And a quarter of 40 is 10. So 30 is 75% of 40. Okay. And brake, I'm gonna change the brake balance controller. No, I'm not. Alright, whatever. I just want to do a quick video. Let's see how this drives. Paddle shift, not H shift. I'll test the brake balance in a couple corners and then let's see. Okay, it's understeer. So it's a shame that the rear suspension doesn't go softer. It means there's just natural throttle sensitivity. I can't tune out. Okay, so I think I have to adjust the brake bias. I'll just do it right here. So I have it at 3 on the 95 Porsche. However, I'm also using different tires than the 95 Porsche. Okay, that's pretty good. A lot of throttle sensitivity, especially with that stiff anti-roll bar. So what I'm getting is understeer while trail braking, and then snap oversteer with too much brake. So that's a sign that this front spring is too stiff and the brake bias is too far back. Let's try it at 4. Maybe a good trail braking corner to test it out. Brake here, let's go do some trail braking here. Okay, it's safer. Okay, it's controllable. Okay, I'm going to change it in the setup sheet and then restart the lap. So I think most of the performance probably going to come from that under tray, because this does have decent aero. It's in the 200s on the wing. Means it's fairly significant. Not as high as some of the other cars, but significant nonetheless. So -4 front and a little less rear ride height. There we go. That's just a guess. I'm not trying to achieve anything specific from that. I just want the car to be a little bit more drivable. So anyway, back to suspension. There's a lot of oversteer. Performance suspension, and a lot of understeer on the brakes. Performance suspension is really stiff. I don't think a lot of the bumpiness is translated into the car. It seems like the car has tender springs programmed into the game that are unadjustable, non-adjustable tender springs. And throttle sensitivity because the rear spring is too stiff. They didn't change the differential. 30% lock or 30 level lock is not that much. That's 30 on the acceleration lock. Brake to 4th gear here. A lot of oversteer on the brakes. As you can see, I was counter steering through the entry into that high-speed turn, which is a very nice feeling, but it's very unsafe. Oh, I'm gonna stay in 3rd. Better rev range rather than shifting right out of the apex. A lot of drifting. Controllable slides though. I need a lot more initial torque lock, getting a lot of oversteer or lifting off the brakes. Stay in 3rd here too. So as I come off the brakes, you can see the car just wants to rotate. And the only way to tune that out is through the initial torque. I didn't need to brake there. Whoa. Whoa. Oh, okay. There's that snappiness. The car is undriftable on throttle. Maybe I need to counter steer assist to get the car drifting. A lot of oversteer. So with that rear spring, I might have to tune the car solely with the under tray. Well, the under tray and the initial torque. Another alternative is to reduce the rear anti-roll, which is nice when the corner is gripping, but having soft rear anti-roll makes the car very unstable to slide because the weight transfers a lot with the wobbly rear end, which is usually why I like a stiff rear anti-roll bar. Stay in third here too, maybe? No, second. Maybe you should have been third. This is definitely second. Should have stayed in third for the straight. Oh, too fast. Oh, dipped it out on the curb on the outside there. Unintentionally, so it's bad driving, even if I kept it on track. I didn't put the car where I intended. Too much throttle. And if the car is not doing what I intend, it's bad driving. So that's that throttle sensitivity. Again, very little steering input to get the car rotating through the corner. Which is nice. I would like to get the front engine rear-wheel drive cars to perform like this if I could, but it's really difficult to tune out the understeer because the anti-roll doesn't get stiff enough in most of the cars. So the only cars that I can get to drive with oversteer or their front engine rear wheel drive are the ones with like 52% weight distribution, 52% front weight distribution, because of just the way the tuning limitations are in Gran Turismo. So the front anti-roll bar is pretty soft at 4, whatever 4 is. It makes it really easy to slide. The front end is not too snappy. There's some bumpiness. You can see the bumpiness. So this would be a really harsh ride with these springs. If you just watch how this car is riding on these straights, if you just look at the detail of the dash versus the line in the road and how it's wobbling everywhere, it's because these springs are very stiff at 230 in the front and 240 in the rear. Don't want to brake too aggressively in this fast section. Again, this is like in a 230 range. It's close to 20. What do you call it? 20 kilogram springs. I'm gonna do another lap. I'm gonna do some quick changes though. So again, really stiff springs. This car stock should be really, I wouldn't say easy, but for a competent driver, really fun to drive. Like, it's not ridiculously hard. It's not supposed to be ridiculously hard to drive for a competent driver, which maybe I'm not a competent driver, I don't know. But I think I am. So what I'm going to do is tune in some more understeer. a little less. Let's go even on the under tray. I could lower it, but I don't want to. And do I have the, no, I don't have the differential. So I thought I got parts for it. I must have got it for a different car. Leave the braking bias. Oh, it's 230, not 240 in the rear. So I would like this a little bit softer for the brake bias I have. Or maybe I can bring this down. Bring this up a little bit. How much can I go up though? I'll just go 250, whatever. It's just a guess. I'm not going to achieve what I specifically want with this first setup change, because I don't know what it does. I have to overextend to get either understeer or snap oversteer. So if I make the front natural frequency too stiff, I'll get understeer while trail braking, and if the brake bias is too far back, I'll get snap oversteer while depressing the brake too far while trail braking. And then I'd have to, from that position, soften the front spring and move the brake bias forward again, which I'm not going to do. I'm just going to do one more drive as it is. And I increase the front anti-roll bar to make the car less wobbly. However, it's going to be more prone to snapping. So I can't slide the car. And it's going to be prone to sliding because I don't have any initial torque on the car. So whatever, I'm going to do another drive. Try it out. This is a low effort video. A lot more mid-corner steering wheel lock. So I'm putting more lock into the car at mid-corner, as you can tell. A little bit of oversteer lifting off throttle. So I still have to be careful coming off the brakes and lifting off throttle. Stay in third here. Whoa, a lot of rotation off throttle again. So the slides are a lot less smooth. So this is going to be tricky. Can't slide it here too much. Oh, third here. So just to reiterate, these spring settings with this car, I didn't check, it's in the setup sheet, close to 32,000 pounds, or 3,200 pounds. I've made that mistake twice already. It's gonna have pretty stiff springs at 2 hertz. Oh, wrong gear. I'm pretty sure it has double wishbone front suspension. So the motion ratio is going to be less than 1. Because it probably has a shock tower, not push rod suspension in the front. So if I had push rod suspension, the motion ratio is dependent on the push rod and the cam that it's attached to. And I have no idea how to calculate that if I don't know any of the dimensions. But if it's a shock tower and it's roughly in the middle of the lower swing arm, it's going to have close to 50% motion ratio, which means it's going to have a really stiff spring in the front as well at 2.5 hertz. So it's a lot easier to get on throttle with the stiffer front springs and the stiffer front anti-roll bar as well. However, if it does snap loose on throttle, it's going to just rotate really quickly. Which I would normally tune that out by having a stiffer anti-roll bar and a softer rear spring, which I can't go any softer with these suspension parts. Whoa. So if the car were running these springs with these specific hertz, with no helper springs and no progressive rate springs, like I said, it would be very, very bumpy. It would be basically a track-only car by how bumpy it would be. Like, you would not want to drive it on the street at all. Oh, almost did it again. Again, out of control. I stayed on track, but I did not do what I intended there. The same thing as I did last lap. Very good throttle performance. Staying fourth here this time. Downshift to third up the hill. Keep in until somewhere around that tree. Tree on the horizon, that is. Okay, stay in third here too. And third here as well. You could be in second, but it'd be a really early shift into third. Same with this corner. This car has a lot of torque. So technically it's torque limited, so using second gear would be faster. If it was slip limited in those turns in third gear, then third gear would be just fine. But if you have more torque in a lower gear, it's faster to use a lower gear while you have grip, that is. If the lower gear is, if the higher gear is already slip limited, the lower gear is going to be even more slip limited. So that's some little driving tips for you, if you didn't know that. A lot of oversteer coming off the brakes. Nice and stable on the brakes. Again, need to tune the initial torque. Nice stable throttle input. Had to lift because of push on throttle. I like push on throttle, or I should say I like near neutral on throttle, with favoring a little bit of push on throttle. And push is basically intentional understeer. Take it easy on the brakes here, because lifting off. Whoa. Okay, yep. Just mash the brakes to get it to understeer, so I didn't crash. I was going sideways on the brakes in the high-speed section. That can be deadly in real life, which is usually why they don't let people drive the Nordschleife unless they're doing a, I guess, non-tourist lap, whatever that track's called. Anyway, that's a lazy video for today, and mostly came to talk about the stiffness of the springs and just how stiff a 2.5 Hertz spring is on a car this heavy. I mean, it's a fairly light car. It's not like a 2-ton Tesla or something, but it's not super light either. And with the motion ratio, with the multi-link rear suspension and the double wishbone front suspension, a motion ratio of 0.5 or close to, unless it has push rods. But anyway, a motion ratio of 0.5, the springs would be very, very stiff, like 20 kilogram springs, something like that, in that range. Anyway, that's it. Till the next one.